It's our turn, episode number 103, Running with the Pack. In this episode, Nicole and I talk about the games we've played recently, including Dungeon Mayhem, Istanbul the Dice Game, Anatomy Park, and Galactic Scoundrels. Sarah and Will Reed talk game design, and I interview Becky Anninson about her new role-playing game, Bite Me.
This is the Dice Tower Network, adding games to your wish list since 2005.
Hosting for this episode is generously provided by our fantastic supporters on Patreon.com. If you'd like to help us out by pledging $1 per month or more, please visit patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. Every dollar helps us to keep this show going strong. Hi, and welcome back to Our Turn. I'm Cathy Ford.
And I'm Nicole Martin.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Are you surviving the rainy weather we're having?
Trying to. We had one dry day out of the past 8.
Yeah, it's raining a lot down here, too. Are you guys having any flooding up there?
A little bit, yeah, further north. There was actually a landslide on the highway. So, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. So, Nicole is up at Humboldt State, which is in the far northern corner of California.
Yep.
She's almost to Oregon. And then I'm down in Sacramento, and we're all getting this atmospheric river that's flowing through California right now.
Mm-hmm.
But rainy weather is a great reason to stay inside and play board games, don't you think?
Absolutely.
And role-playing games, too. All right. So we usually start off by talking about what we've gotten to the table lately. So what have you played?
Well, recently I played a new game from Wizards of the Coast called Dungeon Mayhem. And it's a card game where you play as a different character. Everyone has their own character deck. And you're trying to beat your opponent by casting spells. It's a super quick game. It's for 4 players or less. And the art is really cute, and it's really fun and very simple to learn. And yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What kind of a rating would you give it?
I'd give it like a 4.5. I think it's just super cute, and it's really easy to pick up, and it's really fun to play.
The rules are real easy to learn?
Yes.
Excellent. How long does it take to play it?
Depending on how many people you have, like with 4 people, it probably only took 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Quick.
It's very quick.
Okay. All right. So that's Dungeon Mayhem?
Yes.
All right. That was a fast review. All right. The first game I'm going to talk about is called Istanbul, the Dice Game. Have you ever played the game Istanbul?
I have not.
Okay. So in Istanbul is basically a race. You're trying to earn enough money to buy rubies.
Okay.
And you either want to buy 5 or 6 rubies, depending on how many players are in the game. And Istanbul, the Dice Game, has all the flavor of Istanbul. So it's got the same art. It's got the same iconography. It's just instead of moving your merchant and his stack of assistants around the board and leaving assistants, you're rolling these dice.
Okay.
And you're trying to make pairs or more in order to turn the icons on the dice into tokens that you can then use to turn in for rubies. And you're trying to get these rubies. You're trying to get 6 rubies, I think, by the end of the game. And the board has changed some, but the artwork is the same. You can tell it's done by the same people. We love Istanbul. It's a fun game. And Istanbul, the Dice Game, does not disappoint. It's a short game in comparison to Istanbul. I think the rule book is better than Istanbul's rule book. That was one of my big complaints about Istanbul. I sat down one time to try and teach it to a group because I hadn't played it in a while. And so I was looking through the rule book and I'm like, this just makes no sense. And I know this game is fun to play, so why isn't this making sense? But we were able to pick up the dice game real quick. And we played a 4-player game of it, had a great time. And it immediately went onto our Plague game shelf. We don't need a second play of it. We know it's a keeper. Right now, I'm going to give it a 4 because I think I need to explore it some more. Mm-hmm. But it could absolutely become a 5 for me.
That's awesome.
And I know Mark was really impressed with it really quick. So that is Istanbul, the dice game.
Cool.
What else? What else have you played?
So just this past weekend, we played a game called Anatomy Park, which is
interesting.
Yes, and it's based off of an episode from the show Rick and Morty.
Okay. I haven't seen Rick and Morty, but go ahead.
So the concept of this is you are in a human's body, and you are building a theme park within this human's body. Making rides, transportation, eateries. I think there's also merchandise tiles. And it's a tile-based game, so you're putting tiles onto the board to make your theme park, which is Anatomy Park. And it's you and I think it's a 4-player game. Yeah, it's a 4-player game. And you have to beat these diseases. So there's diseases that are running rampant and destroying the park. It's supposed to be a parody of Jurassic Park. And so it's germs instead of dinosaurs, or diseases instead of dinosaurs, and you have to kill the diseases and escape the human's body. Before the human dies of a heart attack. So if the heart attack card comes up, the game's over.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, we have a game that we've been wanting to get to the table. We haven't yet, called Viral. And in Viral, you're playing the viruses.
Ooh.
And you're trying to, if I understand it correctly, you're trying to, invade this human's body and take over the most number of organs. Mm-hmm. But then the game plays back.
Oh.
And anyway, like I said, I haven't played it yet, but that your Anatomy Park reminds me of Viral. So now I need to get Viral to the table a little more soon.
Yeah.
A little more quickly.
Yeah, this it's a really fun game, but the game that we played didn't play like a normal game apparently. It was my first time playing it, but the people that own the game said that it was a little quick and we were getting ambushed by diseases more than they normally do. So I rated it a 3.5, but it would probably go up if I played it more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah. Learning games are always tough to rate. Ordinarily, unless a game is outstanding, like Istanbul, the dice game, I like to give it a play or 2 before I review it, but not always possible. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. And that's why with some things I say, I'm going to give it this rating now, but it could go up as I play it some more. Definitely, especially on games that I'm like, yeah, I do want to play this again. Mm-hmm. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
All right. So that is Anatomy Park. All right. Well, I don't know if I've ever told anybody this or not, but I'm a fan of this little show called Firefly.
I don't think I've ever heard you talk about it before.
Anyway, I found out that there was this little game on Kickstarter called Galactic Scoundrels. And it sounded very much like a Firefly flavored game.
Cool.
Not exactly Firefly. It's not that IP. Mm-hmm. But it is very much a space western.
Okay.
and it very much borrows from a lot of the science fiction space genre shows from the 60s on, from the 1960s on. Mm-hmm. You are all competing spaceship owners, and your task in this game is to find a job, find a crew, and keep flying, which was basically the motto of Captain Mal on Firefly. Mm-hmm. And your job is to screw with each other and prevent each other from finishing your jobs, each other's jobs. Mm-hmm. So the way this game is played is at the beginning of a round, a job is pulled, and the amount of pay that is allocated to that job, you roll for it. This game has 4 D4s in it.
Okay.
And you roll for the job, and it tells you the little player egg cards tell you how much money you can pull out for each job. And so one job might be worth $10,000. Another job might be worth $250,000. It just depends on what the role is. It depends on what season what phase of the game it's in. Mm-hmm. So the phases are 4, 5, and 6. Any idea what that might be paying homage to?
Star Wars, I'm assuming.
It was so funny because the very first, I was playing with Mark and Frank, and so the first job, Frank won the first job, and I had this hand of cards, and one of the things I could play was somebody from his past.
Ooh.
And so when I threw down the card and it said somebody from your past, and Frank goes, "Oh, who is it from my past?" And I said, "Hardcore Fenton Mud." From the Star Trek episode, Mud's Women. Mm-hmm. And he just started cracking up because that was the first thing I thought of, mm-hmm. Somebody from his past coming up to haunt him and take away, whatever he was trying to do. And the entire game is just that way. You're telling the story of what you're doing to each other. So it's a storytelling game. You're also trying to mess with each other, take jobs away from one another. There are twists, and if in a twist, they can negotiate with the person who played the twist, mm-hmm. so that either that person who is going to help you or hurt you. And so, and they, even if you give them something that they want. So say like Frank says, "I'll give you $2,000 to go away." I go, "All right, I'll take your $2,000, and then I'm going to hurt you anyway." And so then you roll a couple of the D4s, and there's a key that says what happens based on what you rolled. Mm-hmm. So if you roll 2 1s, that's a 2, and that means you take over the job in its current state.
Okay.
Well, the job could still have 3 more phases to go through, or it could be done. And then you collect the money that the person you just stole the job from has actually earned. Oh. So it was a fun game. It was one of those games, though, that you have to play with the right group. Mm-hmm. For example, I would not sit down and play this game with my mom and grandma.
No, I cannot picture grandma playing this.
Yours or mine?
Both.
And yeah, they just wouldn't be the right group for this. Now, would Mark and I want to play this with you and Kyrie? Absolutely.
Yeah, we love being Galactic Scoundrels.
I think that would be loads of fun. So I give this game a solid 4. Played with the right group. If you've got a lot of friends that are into sci-fi, mm-hmm. and would get a lot of the inside jokes from Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Firefly, name any other space opera. Mm-hmm. They had stuff there from Stargate. They had stuff there from Farsight. I think that's the right name. Just a lot of inside jokes from the world of sci-fi. And I thought it was a fun game. But like I said, you need the right group to play it, and people who can do improv as well. So I give it a conditional 4. I think that if you've got a group that isn't into that kind of thing, this game's going to fall flat. But if you've got people who like sci-fi, they're going to love it.
That sounds awesome.
So that is Galactic Scoundrels. And that's what we've been playing. We have set up and been referring to and rating games by our own rating scale. Here's how we are using this scale. 5. Buy this now. 4. A good solid game. 3. Decent with some bugs. 2. Has great potential as kindling. And 1. Give me back the time I spent playing it.
Hello, and welcome to Gaming Together with Will and Sarah. I'm Will.
I'm Sarah.
And we'll like to talk about, game design and everything around game design. We may get off topic quite a bit.
We'll see.
Yes. Anyway, the first topic we want to talk about today is designing with experience. Now, a lot of game designers will come out there and they'll ask, and this is veterans as well as newcomers, do you design based on mechanics or do you design based on theme? Because essentially that is a starting point for most designers. Mm-hmm. And we've seen this throughout our years of designing and have subscribed to it ourselves, where certain games will be one or the other or a little combination of both. But I found that technically mechanics and theme are a means to an end. In other words, the better place to start is what type of experience do you want for your players? Do you want them to be thrilled with an exciting, I don't know what's going to happen sort of feeling? Do you want them to feel smart because they've designed this great engine that now trounces their opponents? Do they want to feel intellectual with figuring out the vagaries of the puzzle that's before them? It's all of these type of things that experience drives. And then you can use mechanics and theme to see whether or not either of them help in that type of experience.
Yeah, it's starting with experience gives you that overarching goal of the game. And then you can test, as we're working through mechanics, you always keep in mind what is the experience you want, and does that mechanism lead to it? Does that thematic element lead to it? And in that way, I feel you can marry mechanics and theme in a much stronger way by having everything lead towards the experience you want the players to feel, or to just, simply experience.
Yeah, you can even find out that maybe mechanics aren't the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe theme isn't the more important thing. And you'll find that because you keep asking yourself, does this serve the experience? Am I seeing from my playtesters the type of experience I'm looking for? And even training yourself to look at playtesters and start asking questions about their experience and making that the focus of your playtesting, it takes a little bit of rewiring in your brain.
Yeah, because we've had some times where we're playtesting and we are watching the players and they are experiencing what we want them to experience. However, when we get to the end and we're starting to think more critically about it, they sometimes say, no, we didn't like that, or this is not good. And it's interesting, once they put on that critical hat, they kind of forget about, did they actually enjoy or did they feel something during the game?
Yeah, and the funny thing is sometimes the reason why they give their criticisms is because they see it doing something similar in XYZ famous game. And in XYZ famous game, it's done this way. And you don't really do it that way. And I feel there's a shortcomings here. And that's probably because we're not going for whatever XYZ's game experience was. And having a playtester recognize that critically is hard for us to ask, but it's something that we then use to filter out certain bits of feedback and know which elements that we really need to pick up on. I know recently we did a game called Until Proven Guilty, and we've liked what we were doing with it, and mechanically it was working fine, thematically it was all on the table. The problem came from the experience. What we wanted people to walk away with wasn't what we were leading to. And everything worked. I mean, it worked rather well. I mean, we've coupled everything to go into one another. How everything was represented made sense. But even to this point, it is not the experience we want from the game.
Or, in that respect, the experience the players were expecting. For example, in that game, we have very minor deductive elements. But because those existed, even in their minor elements, people wanted it to be the game. They wanted to be able to be... They wanted it to be a social deduction game, which it was not. It just had an element of deduction to help you make decisions. And so what was there in the game was misleading players to expect a different experience than what we were hoping was going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because when it comes to what I as a player expect to experience can really result in a game falling flat for me.
Yeah.
Not that the game is bad, it's just I as a player expected to have this experience and didn't. Now, if a game designer knows what that experience is, then they can actually couch wording into various things to then prompt the person or the player who's reading whatever, whether it be on the back of the box or in the initial rule book or throughout the rules. They can start being prompted to, oh, this is what I should be experiencing. This is what I should be experiencing. And by the end, if you did your job right, then, yeah, what I experienced is what the whole game was about, and therefore I feel more satisfied about it.
Speaking of another game that we've been working on, Warm and Fuzzy Feelings. I wanted a game that brought out people's generosity and giving, and it works with certain people who want that experience and fully enjoy that experience. But as I'm finding, as in with all things, that one game is not going to be for all gamers. With certain groups of gamers, that game fell flat because it wasn't what they were expecting for the experience. They didn't want to have that experience because they're not used to generosity. In games, they're used to taking. It's mine. Give it to me. I'm going to win. And in this, you don't have direct control over whether you win or lose. You can only affect other people. And that really didn't work for some people. So there's still a caveat that if there's an experience you really want and it's working with some gamers and not others, then you've figured out what your target audience is, and you have to focus in on that target audience, because you will not succeed at a game if you try to make it for everybody, because it just won't. Because if you've already got evidence that it's just not. So focus in, make it better for the audience that is enjoying the experience. Even if it makes it a smaller audience, you and the people playing the game will enjoy it more, and it'll be a success on that scale.
Yeah, because if you do that, you essentially build in longevity with the hardest core fan group that you have. And, hey, people are being born every year, so you're going to have new people still coming into the hobby that will find your game. So it's not like your game is going to find a small niche and always stay that small niche. Mm-hmm. That niche will probably fluctuate.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have to say about experience. Anything else?
Can't think of anything. So if you have any questions about designing for the game experience, let us know. You can always find me on Twitter at EurogamerGirl. And if you have questions for us, I'll make sure to relay it to Will, as he's not on social media. But we will get back to you and answer your questions.
All right. And with that, I've been Will.
And I'm always Sarah.
Let's hope so. And you've been listening to Gaming Together with Will and Sarah. Now get those games on the table.
I want to give special thanks to our Patreon supporters from the entire Our Turn podcast crew. In particular, I want to give shout-outs to patrons Kathleen, Matt, Michael, Nicholas, and Richard. Thank you. We couldn't do this show without you. Today for the interview, I am joined by Becky Anninson, who is publishing a new role-playing game through Kickstarter called Bite Me, a game of werewolf pack dynamics. Longtime listeners to the show will know that vampires and werewolves are creatures that are close to my heart. That means I am eager to hear about this new RPG. Becky, welcome to Our Turn.
Thank you so much for having me on, Cathy.
Well, like I said, I am eager to hear about this. But before we dive into your game, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Becky Anninson. The first game that I had written and published was When the Dark Is Gone, which came out a couple of years ago now. And then I also did Lovecraft-esque with my partner and co-designer, Josh Fox. And then Bite Me is my next project. So it's my third game out there in the world.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
No, I'm really excited. Part of the reason that I was so inspired to do it is because ages and ages ago, there was some statistics that went around that said a lot of women designers design one game and then don't do any more. And when I saw that statistic, I was absolutely determined that would not be me, and I would make sure that I would get something else out, even if it killed me.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you've stuck to it and kept going. I think probably it's just that women are so busy.
Oh, tell me about it.
I think gaming becomes less of a priority for a lot of women, which is kind of, it's sad that is the way it is. And I personally have made it my mission in life to get more women and girls involved in gaming. So I'm very happy to have you on, and especially as a repeat designer.
Oh, that's brilliant. If I may, I would say that I think part of the reason I've been so successful in maintaining my interest in gaming is just surrounding myself with like-minded people, because all my friends are gamers, my partner's a gamer, my two children, I hope, will be gamers, although they do have some choice in the matter. But the kind of the social kind of the culture of the social group that I'm in is it's just default. Everybody does it.
Yeah,
makes it easier.
I don't have children of my own, but I have nieces. I have several nieces, and my 21-year-old niece is a gamer. I have a 4-year-old niece that I'm working on making a gamer. I have a newborn niece that I have plans for. And I have a soon-to-be newborn niece that I have plans for.
Oh, how
So,
exciting.
yeah, we'll see how that goes. But so far, the 21-year-old and the 4-year-old are coming right along. So, all right. So tell me, what interested you in getting into game design in the first place?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky one. So that ever since I was about, I think, 19, I'd been designing LARPs, freeform LARPs,
Mhm.
with a large group of other people. I was kind of in a community at university. We were doing a lot of role playing and a lot of LARPing and a lot of LARP design. And so I was really, really comfortable and familiar with the concept of doing LARP design. And I kind of bodied along in my life, and it never really occurred to me to design tabletop RPGs. And I think, to be honest, the reason was that I owned Dungeons and Dragons, I owned Vampire the Masquerade, and innumerable other things, and I just couldn't imagine myself sitting down writing encumbrance tables or swimming rules or things like that. And I was very happy to play in those games, but I they didn't really kind of sing to me in terms of system design. And what I was very familiar with was designing games that had a lot of kind of social interaction and things like that. So I kind of thought, well, tabletop role playing, that's all about encumbrance tables. It's big A4 books. That's not really my jam. So, that's cool. I'll carry on playing, but I won't be a designer. And then someone introduced me to Fiasco, and that completely blew my mind. It blew my mind from the perspective of, oh, hang on a minute, this is also a tabletop game, isn't it? Of course, tabletop could be much, much bigger than what I had been imagining it to be. And it really took Fiasco, and then once I met Fiasco, kind of a journey into other indie games to kind of give me the confidence, I think, to kind of say, well, actually, I can design a tabletop RPG, because tabletop RPGs don't all have to look like Dungeons and Dragons. And that wouldn't
Exactly.
be how I would design a game, but that doesn't mean I can't design a tabletop RPG. So I'm kind of pretty passionate about sort of saying to people, tabletop RPG is a very broad church. It can be an awful lot of things, and you can design games which play to your strengths as a GM or as a player, that perhaps you weren't finding in existing games.
So that leads us to your game, Bite Me. How did this one come about?
So Bite Me was a game which had been kind of rumbling around in my brain for a really long time, without me putting pen to paper. And it really started when I read Bitten by Kelly Armstrong. So I've always loved werewolf stories. But I really was kind of really in love with the idea of this kind of close chosen family of pack, rather than the really, really original werewolf stories, which is kind of just somebody who turns into a werewolf and they have no memory of it and they go on a rampage and it's all kind of tragic, but there's no kind of pack or dynamic or anything. So then I started reading Kelly Armstrong's Bitten. I think I read it when it first came out, and similar sorts of urban supernatural fiction. And there was an awful lot of really interesting ideas about pack life and what it means to be a werewolf that was in those stories, which was very, very different to the really traditional stuff. And I think I really latched onto that idea, not only about how packs would be these incredibly interesting, dynamic places, dynamic groups to be a part of, but also that if you live in a world where people can smell emotions, then that puts a completely different
Definitely.
complexion on your relationships with people. If you live if you live in a world where people can smell your desire or your anxiety or your depression, then why would you hide things anymore? There'd be no point. Everybody would know. And so that led me down this journey of sort of saying, well, what if you had werewolf packs where people were just really open about their emotions and their feelings all of the time, because there was really no reason not to be. And that was how kind of the evolution of Bite Me came, from reading the books and then getting into to where we are now with the system.
What a change in a social dynamic, because so often when people ask you, how are you? You say, oh, I'm fine. You know, you wouldn't be able to do that in a society where people could smell your emotions.
Exactly. And I think there's a really lovely example of this in the TV series Teen Wolf. I think must be in maybe the 5th series, I can't remember, but where one of the werewolves kind of goes up to her boyfriend and says, "What is wrong with you? You know, you've been stinking of anxiety for the last however long. What is up?" And I remember looking at that, and I was kind of writing Bite Me at the same time. I was watching it and thinking, that's it. That's exactly it. Why wouldn't you just ask somebody? You know, you're important to me. I care about you. I can tell you're really unhappy or really anxious. Why wouldn't I say, you know, should we talk about that?
Wow. That is really a paradigm shift in social interaction.
I think, and that's what really kind of intrigues me. So I wanted to write a game which kind of gave people that excuse to have those conversations, to be really honest about how they feel, and then to see what the fallout of that is, and where that takes them. And that again, I think, comes back to the whole, I used to write LARPs. I used to write LARPs with social dynamics in them. And it's kind of, I feel, a natural extension of that.
Wow. Just wow. That is so intriguing. So tell me, how did you approach playtesting with this game?
Gosh, well, so there's been several rounds of playtesting. I'm a huge believer in playtesting.
Do you just do playtesting with like one shots, or do you do a campaign?
No. So the first time I ran Bite Me, I did it as a couple of one shots because I wanted to see very early on if there was any, big problems in the system, and a really big problem is going to come out in a one shot. Then I ran a 12-week campaign. Then I sent it out for external playtesting. Then it came back from external playtesting. And by external playtesting, I mean I kind of put out a call. 2 or 3 people ran the game for their groups, and for me it was really important that they were people who I had not run the game for, so that I wasn't subconsciously transmitting anything to them. Because part of playtesting for me is not just saying, I've written these mechanics, what happens when they meet clever gamers who want to do their own thing, although that's a really big part of it. Part of it is I've written down what you need to do to GM this game in a way that's going to make it work really well. I want you to see what I've written, do what I've said, and see if it works. And that will tell me if there's something I'm doing when I'm GMing it that I don't realize I'm doing, which is absolutely essential to making this game work. If you've played in a game that I've run and then you take it off and run it, then there's a good chance you'll have subconsciously noticed what I'm doing and you'll copy it without realizing. So it's important to me that I playtest my game, but other people playtest it coming at it completely cold, so they can say, well, hang on a minute, Becky, there's this whole bit of the system that just didn't work at all. And then I will go back and go, okay, well, maybe the reason it's not working is that I failed to mention something important that I was doing that I didn't realize I was doing, So yeah, playtesting is really important to me. And I think there's a real art to it, actually. Not only are you playtesting your stuff, are you stress testing your stuff, but do you know when to stop and say, well, I could playtest this for the next 10 years and then it will never go out into the world. I could be constantly tweaking and iterating and making it just that little bit more perfect. Or shall I say, now is a good enough point to get it out there, because if I don't get it out there now, I'll sit on this for 15 years and no one else will ever see it. So
now, do you have one-shot scenarios that are going to come with the game, or is this just the rules and the GM gets to plan their story accordingly, or is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both. And I think that's for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I'm a big believer in giving people the tools to be creative themselves. So I want the MC, and because this is a Powered by the Apocalypse world game, so call it MC rather than GM. I want the MC to have lots and lots of inspiration from reading the text to go and create their own world and flesh it out with lots of really cool and interesting stuff. I haven't said whether wolves turn at full moon or whether silver affects them. That's up to people to decide for themselves, to build their own mythology, if you like. But I think that scenarios do two really, really important stuff. So they're absolutely going to be in there. So the first thing is that in a convention situation, you're running a 3 to 4 hour one shot. If you spend all of the time doing all of that beautiful, gorgeous, juicy world creation, then you probably won't get to play very much at all. And that's a shame. And also, you can create an absolute huge world. And then I think as an MC, you kind of feel like you have to use it all. And in a one shot, then that can start to get a little bit forced. So part of the reason that scenarios are in there is to kind of give people that quick start. I'm in a convention. We just want to play to the table as soon as possible. We'll use a scenario. I think the other reason that scenarios are important and the reason that they're in the game text is because it's really good to show people how to do things. So you can look at a scenario as really as an extended example of how to do game setup. What makes for juicy relationships? What makes for good provocative questions that an MC might like to ask, which will then help people when they're creating their own stuff.
Nice. Very nice. So tell me about your Kickstarter campaign. It's already in progress and it's doing
Yep,
really
it's
well.
in progress. I think we're about 60 or 70% funded at this point, which is really awesome. But I've got some really great stretch goals that I'm really, really keen to get to. So I'm kind of hoping that I can push it past into those. And I've got a mixture of some scenarios. So I've got a scenario by Whitney Delagio, which I'm not going to say too much about the scenario because they can read it on the Kickstarter. But what I think is really gripping about Whitney's scenario is it's exploring people, the sort of person who is really, really calm and always in control and what it takes to push them to the edge, which I think is a really great theme to explore in a werewolf situation.
Sure.
Kelly Armstrong, who wrote Bitten, which inspired me all those years ago, is writing a stretch goal for me, which was basically beyond my wildest dreams. When she said yes, I couldn't quite believe it. I'm such a fan of her work. And she is going to be writing a scenario about a pack of outcast werewolves who are following the Klondike Gold Trail to make their fortunes and make themselves safe and secure, and what happens to them and how that pans out. And that is really exciting. And
now, when did you approach her to write a scenario for you?
Oh gosh, it was I can't remember. That was probably a few months ago. I have this kind of thing that I do, which is I didn't know Kelly Armstrong before I asked her, but basically my worldview is the only way that something will definitely never happen for you is if you don't try.
Exactly.
So I had no expectation that she would say yes. I sent an email via her admin assistant on just the contact on her website, thinking she'll probably say no. But, the only way she's definitely never going to do this for me is if I don't even ask. So I asked and she said yes.
Oh, wow.
And then I have got two more stretch goals, which is another scenario by Paul Sager, who we're going to tweak the system and shift the action to a group of sort of 11, 12-year-old kids investigating mysteries as a kind of a young preteen wolf pack. And that's, set in the 1980s, so it's probably a little bit reminiscent of Stranger Things, but you're doing it as a wolf pack on bikes, I suppose, maybe, I don't know. But that's, I think, is kind of really exciting to me because all of the other stuff in Bite Me is about adults. And I think switching it to kids is going to be really cool.
That is exciting. That is very exciting. I have a friend who would just be brilliant with running that for a group of kids.
Well, I hope we get the stretch goal funded because that'd be really, really cool. I'm really excited to do that. And that will mean kind of taking some of the adult stuff out. But that's cool, And the other stretch goal, which is actually my first stretch goal, is Kate Bullock is going to be writing an essay for me, which is going to be an extension of some work she's done before on werewolves and toxic masculinity and how we can kind of subvert that. And what that's about really is, when you think about it, werewolves are ultra violent. They have all these dominance and alpha type social structures, and some of that is absolutely reflected in the rules. But of course, part of what this game is doing is saying, yeah, you go out, you be ultra violent, but somebody in your pack is going to call you on that because there are all these emotional mechanics. So yeah, go out, dominate people, but don't expect that that's just going to be accepted without question. That's going to be interrogated. You're going to have to own up to your guilty feelings about that. And so she's going to kind of take those themes about looking at some of the really like hyper masculine stuff about the werewolf myth and saying, okay, when you're playing in a werewolf pack, what can you do to subvert that and make it really powerful when you're playing it at the table? Take those tropes, turn them on their head. I'm really excited about that as well.
Wow, that's great. Fantastic. Now, this campaign goes through March 21st. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
A little bit of ways to go. We're still in February as we're recording this. So I wish you all the luck in the world with this. This sounds like an exciting game. And if any of you out there are RPGers and into werewolves, go for this. This sounds exciting. I know I'm excited about it. I'm going to see what I can do to back this.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, this is exciting. I think my husband would enjoy this too. So I know he loves vampires, and when we were playing in the LARP, his vampire was the envoy, the ambassador between the vampires and the werewolves.
Ooh, dangerous position to be in.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, I think we're both going to be very excited about this. All right. So how can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you online?
So probably the best way to get me is at Becky Anninson on Twitter. At the moment, if you sign up or you friend me on Twitter, and then you'll probably just get a huge amount of, hey, there's a Kickstarter that I'm running at the moment, rather than any other content. But other things I talk about are writing and editing and how they're hard, but they're good to do anyway. And also the website of my publishing company that I have with my partner, Josh, and that's www.blackarmada.com. And there's a blog there, and there's even a mailing list that you can sign up for.
And Black Armada is the company that's publishing this too, right?
Yes, that's right. Company sounds like it's really fancy, but it's basically the two of us in our living room.
I'm finding that a lot of publishers are one or two people sitting in their living room, and that's fine. That's great. I think it's wonderful that you can do that. All right. Well, Becky Anninson, thank you for coming on to Our Turn and sharing your Kickstarter project with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Cathy.
I hope you'll come back with your next project, whenever that is.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm already writing it.
Oh, what is it?
That's something to do with fairy tales and a journey through a forest.
Oh, okay. That sounds exciting too. All right. Fantastic.
The Dice Tower Network is a proud supporter of the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund. The board gaming community is kind and generous, and this fund was created to provide financial assistance to members of the board gaming community in their time of need. To find out how you can help the fund continue to help others, please visit jackvassell.org/donate. Thank you for your support.
All right, so now we're getting to the end of the episode and winding things down and looking ahead to what we've got on our plates going forward. You've got a special day coming up.
Yes, I do. It's going to be my 22nd birthday on the 10th. So that's going to be fun. I have no idea what I'm doing. I actually forgot that my birthday was happening until March 1st happened.
Oops.
Because normally I plan out events like this like weeks or months in advance. And then I was like looking at my calendar. I'm like, oh yeah, March. Oh God, March.
Yeah, last year for your birthday, for your 21st birthday, didn't you take a trip up to Seattle?
Mm-hmm. I spent spring break in Seattle with my boyfriend and 2 of my good friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this year, not so much.
Nope. I'm thinking brunch with some friends and then go see Captain Marvel.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah.
And what else are you working on?
So I recently started volunteering with a group on campus called YES, which is Youth Educational Services, working for a specific branch called Hand in Hand, which volunteers with foster kids on the weekend, like hanging out with them and stuff. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I get to start that this week, which I'm really excited and very nervous about.
You'll do great.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. And then spring break is happening in 2 weeks. So, yeah.
Nice. Now, are you one of those college students that goes crazy?
No, I will be working as many hours as I possibly can.
Oh, my goodness. You're one of those responsible college students.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good for you.
Thank you.
And congrats on the volunteering.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I am up to my eyeballs in getting your turn up and running. We've got an event coming up on March 30th, and I'm sure I'll be talking more about that in coming episodes. But I've also started a project that is inspired by you.
Oh?
Yes. Last year, you were doing your 52-week challenge where you had a book full of writing prompts.
Mm-hmm.
And then you shared them on Facebook?
Yep.
Well, I was like, that is really cool that she is doing that. And then I was at Target one day and I was looking through their books and looking for something similar. And I found this book called 3,000 Questions About Me.
Wow.
And that's all this book is from cover to cover. It is number 1, question, number 2, question, number 3, question.
That's a lot of questions.
Like some of the questions are, what is the quality you like most in a man?
Okay.
What is the quality you like most in a woman? Which words or phrases do you overuse?
Ooh.
You know, just different questions to make you think about yourself.
Yeah.
How many hats do you own? Do you think making driverless cars is a smart invention? You know, and I was like intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've decided that I'm going to revive my blog. I have a blog that I haven't written on in a couple of years. It's called Cathy's Brain, which is my handle that I use for just about everything except for Our Turn. And it can be found at cathysbrain.blogspot.com. And I am blogging 1 question a week. And I'm doing it as a writing exercise, but if anybody wants to go check it out, that's fine. So, you know, just kind of a goofy thing I thought I'd do. I take my journal to work with me and I write the question of the week, as I'm calling it, at the top of my journal. And that way I don't need to take like my computer or anything else. And I just sit down and I write out the answer to the question. And then when I get a little bit of time, I sit down and I type it into my blog and hit publish, put in some pictures.
Cool.
So it's just kind of a silly little thing I'm doing.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of a way to do a little self-exploration. And the other thing that I've done is I'm doing some volunteering too, sort of. I'm getting paid for it, but it's still kind of volunteering. At work, they have a sports and social committee.
Okay.
And the idea is this company that I work for is really into not only making a great customer experience, but also making a great employee experience. Because our jobs are a little stressful. Working in a call center, if you've never done it, it's a little bit stressful. Because people don't like calling tech support for some odd reason. You know, they don't want to spend hours on the phone with somebody they don't know talking about something that's broken, that's driving them nuts. and they're not usually happy when they call. So, so one of the things that this company does is they provide this committee with a budget. They allow employees to contribute to it, and we put on fun little events. So today we met to talk about the St. Patrick's Day event that we're going to put on, and what we're going to do, and what kind of decorations we need, and what we're going to do for the employees. And they're going to bring, I think they're looking at bringing in Irish dancers to perform. And they want to make sure that both the very early folks and the very late folks can both see the performances. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm a part of that. And one of the things they're looking at, and which I am absolutely going to dive on, is starting a board game group.
Ooh.
So I'm going to try and be a part of that. And then they also are looking for someone to volunteer to work with, to be a liaison between the Sports and Social Committee and the charitable effort that they're doing. So I volunteered for that as well. So
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's really cool that your company does that.
Yeah. Now I say I get paid for it because all the meetings and stuff are done during during work hours. So
okay.
Yeah. I get off the phones for a while and get to go do something fun. So
cool.
That's kind of cool. All right. So how can people get a hold of you online if they want to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and now Twitter, but I'm not super active on there. But it exists. I'm a part of it. My Instagram and Snapchat are TrickyNicky97. That's TRICKYNICKY 97. Facebook's just Nicole Martin. And my Twitter handle is, oh gosh.
Isn't it Pyro Princess?
Yeah, it's like Pyro Princess 13 with an underscore between princess and 13.
So you made it real easy.
Super easy.
Don't worry, we'll have links to the show notes with that.
It's Pyro underscore princess 13.
There you go. All right.
There we go.
Pyro underscore princess 13.
Yes.
Cool. All right. And we'll have that in the show notes, which you can find by going to ourturnpodcast.com/episode 103. And you can find me online. I am actually kind of giving my own personal Twitter a reboot. And now that I'm blogging, I'm posting those on Twitter as well. And that is Cathy's Brain. That's Cathy with a C. And it's CATHYSBRAIN. And I also run the Our Turn Podcast Twitter account, which is at Our Turn Podcast. And I manage the Board Game Geek Guild, which is guild number 2600. And then, of course, you can also connect with us over on Facebook. Sarah Reed runs our Facebook page, and she does a fabulous job with it. And that is facebook.com/OurTurnPodcast. Nicole, thanks for joining me for this episode. And you're going to be back again here real soon.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. All right. So on behalf of the entire Our Turn Podcast crew, that was our turn.
And now it's yours.
Thank you for listening. This episode was recorded on March 5th, 2019, and is written and produced by Cathy Ford and Nicole Martin with assistance from Sarah and Will Reed, Becky Anninson, and Mark Ford. Next time, we'll discuss gaming on Twitch. We want and encourage your questions, comments, and feedback. Please call 916-426-2873 and leave us a short voicemail, or send an email to feedback@ourturnpodcast.com. Our theme music was composed by Adriana Crickle. Incidental music was provided by Purple Planet Music. Please check out our show notes to learn more about these talented artists. The material in this episode is copyrighted under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. If you want to learn more about the games discussed in this episode, please visit our website at ourturnpodcast.com/episode 103. You can find a list of the games along with links to their listing on BoardGameGeek.com. We are proud members of the Dice Tower Network. You can find out about other shows in the network like Board Game Blitz, Every Night is Game Night, or the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast by going to DicetowerNetwork.com. Thank you for your support. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about us.